Hi everyone, my name is Cynthia. Let's talk books. Today I am doing a tag. This is the Pain Over Joy tag. And it was first created by Lady Lovestead Reads. I will link their original video down below. And I was tagged by Jen over at Remembered Reads. So this was a tag that I've seen a couple of other people do as well, and I've just really enjoyed hearing people and how they interpret the questions, because as they were reading the questions, I felt like my interpretation of the actual question was very different, and yet I've enjoyed everybody's answers, especially those that took on a much more philosophical approach to the question. So I'm coming to this as somebody who reads a lot of romance. I'm a romance reader, have been a romance reader since middle school, 6th grade, 6th or 7th grade. So I must have been like 11 or 12 years old when I read my first romance, and I have never stopped. I've gone through a whole journey with reading romance, but I want to make that clear that is how I'm approaching the question. So let's take a look. Question number 1 is, do you mostly read books illustrating pain or books illustrating joy? Why? Okay, I read everything. This is like one of the things that if you're going to subscribe to my channel, if you're going to watch my videos, you need to be okay with the fact that I read anything and everything. I have a PhD in French history, and so you're going to see me reading a lot of nonfiction, heavy academic nonfiction about European history, world history. I'm also going to be reading a lot of like popular nonfiction. That's probably one of the less genres I read the less of, but still I'm going to read popular nonfiction. But I read a lot of romance, I read fantasy, I read mysteries and thrillers. I love literary fiction, especially literary fiction that deals with a lot of pain. So, because that seems to be the definition of literary fiction. It's like you have to have some pain in there, and of course you're not guaranteed a happy ending in the way you are in like a romance or a cozy mystery. People tend to forget that mysteries also offer a very readers know what to expect when they open a cozy mystery, just like they do when they open a romance novel. And so I read it all. And that's just where my taste is at. It has been for a long time, but especially right now, that is where my taste is at. Question number 2 is, do you see books about pain as more intellectually valuable? Why or why not? Because I've read romance for such a long time. I have never been a huge snob about my reading. I've been snobby about like films. I went through a huge snob period with films where I was only reading things that were subtitled. And that was great for that moment. But I've never been a snob about books. So I've never seen pain in fiction as being more valuable than happiness and romance. And to me, when I pick up a romance, I am expecting something, right? I am expecting a central love story with a happily ever after or a happily for now. And romance readers are very strict about that formula. You can play a lot within the genre of romance, but those basic elements have to be there. That means you're guaranteed happiness at the end. And so when I pick up a romance novel, that's what I expect. And I don't think that's any less intellectually rigorous than a literary fiction book that has a tragic ending or deals primarily with pain and tragedy. It is not. Their romance novels get to be judged for being fluffy, unrealistic, and it's really a misogynistic approach to the genre of romance. Is there fluffy, superficial stuff in romance? Yes. Is there really terrible, racist, sexist things within the romance genre? Yes. That's the same for every genre. Literary fiction also has that. So it's not a romance exclusive problem. It's everywhere. Now, are there really great books that deal primarily with pain and suffering? Yes, yes. Some of them I have loved. Are there intellectually rigorous, valuable books within the romance genre? Absolutely. And if you have never found a romance novel to be intellectually valuable and rigorous, then you need to watch my channel. Watch all of my videos about romance, because you will find some really good stuff. All right, question number 3. Why do you think major book prizes like the Booker and the Pulitzer mainly award books about pain? They don't often award books romance that are romances, do they? No. And that's okay. I think this is one of the things that the romance genre has had to deal with for a long time, right? That the misogyny and the looking down at romance, even though romance is what sells the most, and during periods in which sales are difficult in the book industry, romance really is what keeps the whole industry afloat and makes the publishing of books that are nominated and end up winning things like the Booker and the Pulitzer. But all of it, I don't feel the need to attack books about pain or books that are, being nominated and winning some of these other awards in order to lift up the genre of romance. I think there is plenty of room in both the Romancelandia has had some issues with our awards. The Ritas, which are now the Vivians, and there's a lot of issues there, and that I will have to say for another video. But every book prize has its issues, its preferences. I don't think that the kinds of things that awards and prizes look for are necessarily are bad or worse because of the subject matter. I wish they would consider more romance and that it would be given its due within the literary world. I do, but gotta keep fighting the good fight. All right, question number 4 is, do you use and agree with the phrase guilty pleasure? Why or why not? I stopped using the phrase guilty pleasure because I don't really feel guilty about reading my romance novels. In fact, I oftentimes I go to the bookstore with my boyfriend and I ask him to pick the cover that makes him feel the most uncomfortable, and I often buy that book, and I will read it publicly and basically dare anyone to say shit to me about the romance genre. But I have plenty of receipts if anybody tries to have a fight with me about romance. I have also used romance in my history courses. A while back I taught a course on the history of emotions, and we specifically looked at the history of romance and studied romance novels, and I had students read a romance novel and then write essays on them. So I'm like the wrong person to mess with when it comes to this. So I don't feel guilty about it. I understand the why, because of the stigma that gets associated with genres like romance, that people feel like they must feel guilty about it, but very few romance readers actually feel guilty. They think and act like they should feel guilty, but I don't think any of us are really actually guilty. And we just get pleasure out of reading. And by the way, I've been focusing on talking about romance, but I feel like other genres like cozy mysteries get a lot of the same kind of stigma, like that they're just fluff and predictable and things like that. And falls under the same kind of issue I have with these conversations. But question number 5, do you think books centering joy are guilty pleasures? No. I mean, I get why people use the phrase, and it's also maybe because that phrase is so widely used, it's lost a lot of its meaning. I'm not going to go around criticizing people for using the phrase guilty pleasures, because I understand what they mean, and I really don't think they actually feel any guilt about what they're reading. So I don't use the phrase, but I have no problem necessarily with people using that phrase. And do I think romances, I think that's what the question implies here. Do I think romances are guilty pleasures? I think they're just pleasurable. Question number 6. Do you read in secret? Are there books you read but never talk about because of embarrassment, shame, or guilt about liking them? No. I have considered reading books by authors that I don't want to promote, and then I would never include it in my Goodreads list. I would never talk about them in a wrap-up or in any video. I just would not, because I don't want to promote it, but maybe for some reason I might want to read. But like, I talk about romances plenty on my channel. I talk about some really intellectual romances and then some cringy, cheesy, outrageous romances as well. I'm going to talk about one of those in my May wrap up because I just finished reading Alien Quarantine Rescue. I have plenty to say, so I would never hide that. I've never hidden that the fact that I'm a romance reader, and I think maybe it's because when I picked up my first romance, it was from the library. It was from the school library, and then I saw the romances being sold at Target, at Kmart at the time, at like stores, and I was a kid, so I didn't have the money to buy them, so I asked my mom to buy them, and my mom said yes. She gave me a tiny talk about how I needed to make sure I knew that what I was reading was fiction and not real life, and I was like, duh. That was all she ever said. She bought me romances with like the clinch covers, and like it was never an issue for me. Sometimes I did buy like covers for some of my romances just because when reading in public, I didn't want to have to answer questions about it. It wasn't that I felt guilty about it. I just didn't want to deal with it at the time. I was a really shy kid growing up, and like now I'm like, you know, almost like inviting someone to come say something to me about my book. But at the time, I don't know that I would have had the strength to deal with those conversations, and so yeah, I covered them up in public, but I would never not talk about it in my channel, because this is a channel about books and about reading, and so I share a lot of that here. Okay, what question are we at? That was question number 6. So question number 7 is, who do you tag? So I know Cousin was already tagged, and she's the other romance reader that I would want to hear answers from. So I'm just gonna go ahead and add her channel down below, and I'm trying to think other people who I would tag. I don't know, but if you are watching this and you have a different take on the questions, or you hear them differently than I do, please answer. Do the tag. I would love to hear more people's answers to this tag. It's a fun tag. Again, I don't think that happiness, like you have to choose one, happiness or pain. I think that part of the richness of reading and of books is that you have such an array to choose from, and what we want is choices, more and more choices, and more diversity in the things that are available, so that we can pick up anything and everything. I think that's part of the reading experience. So like, I read romance, but I don't not read literary fiction. Like, to me, these themes are not mutually exclusive. There's plenty of pain and conflict in romance novels. It's just that I'm guaranteed a happily ever after at the end, or happily for now, for the relationship. But you know, that doesn't mean that literary fiction and serious novels can't have joy, happiness, and love. A lot of the original like classics like Jane Austen are romances, and nobody sees them as less valid. Okay, some people see them as less valid, but they are wrong. Okay, seriously, I'm on my soapbox. I need to stop. Okay, Thank you so much for watching this video. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what your thoughts on this topic are. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.